this is a real pleasure for me. I first ran into Pauline and I quickly discovered what an amazing person she is. My daughter was interested in becoming an actor, and she realized in order to become an actor, you had to do more than what you did at Tiernanog. You also had to be able to dance. Well, she had done years of dance, and you needed to be a singer. And she auditioned for an event that Pauline was putting on. And I didn't know very much about it at the time. And it turned out that what Pauline had done is become so much interested in the history and nature of Bowen Island that she wrote a musical, a whole musical with all the songs. She created this whole thing and mounted it in Crippen Park outdoors. Pauline insisted this had to be done in nature to be able to represent what this was all about. And maybe one of the first things I heard from Pauline was a call saying, your daughter is wonderful. We're glad to have her as part of our cast, but we need an older gentleman. If she can sing, probably you can too. And I laughed and said, no, I'm not the person you need to talk to, but I know the person, and he's with us tonight, and it's Milton McChrystal. So eventually I did get a part. They needed a growly voice, a disembodied monster off in the woods. And Pauline handed me a loud hailer and said, go off and hide in the woods and sound terrifying. And so I had a little tiny part. I played the native monster meant to terrify children by their parents. The monster is called Sonequa. And it was a wonderful event. What I discovered getting to know Pauline is she's had this amazing history and has finally found her way here onto this island. She is an award-winning novelist. She's an Emmy-nominated screenwriter, playwright, poet. She calls herself a cosmological troubadour. So she is a singer and a songwriter, and probably at one time or another you have heard her sing, heard her tell stories. She has also written books. In fact, if I list all the things I'm going to take away from her time tonight, please go to our website where she has her page about this talk tonight, and it lists her biography there. She's had a very rich life, and it's led her to Bowen Island. And in talking to her, I've come to find another perspective of why people love Bowen Island. What she discovered here, I think, is probably useful for us all to know. Take us on your journey, Pauline. Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
The rising tide, the falling rain, return to sing their stories once again. The ocean breeze, the rippling streams, all murmur softly in their golden dreams. Though Bowen Island change and grow, and many other voices come and go, I'll walk upon this holy ground and hear the ancient voices in the sound. So that song, Ancient Voices, is from the musical that Robert was talking about. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I like to sing first. It kind of calms me down. And I like to imagine that one of these days, I will also be one of the ancient voices in the sound. Now, not as ancient as the Squamish people, the Squamish nation, who cared for this land for thousands of years, whose songs and stories animated the life here. And I honor these original storytellers. And I commit to caring for the land with my songs and my stories. So thank you so much for coming. I've been really looking forward to this. I even learned how to do PowerPoint. So, if it's not quite exactly sequential, you will understand that, that's the way it is. So let's just start with the PowerPoint because I know how to do this. Share screen. Oh, you have to enable me, Mr. Ballantyne, because so far I've been disabled. Host disabled participant screen sharing.
You are able.
I'm able. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so there it is. It moved on me. Okay. Okay, so start with this. Participants can now see your application. Everybody can see it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good. So thank you very much to Ron Woodall for that lovely, he likes taking pictures of people and then he does something fancy with it and it looks great. So I'll start at the beginning, and that is a large French-Canadian musical family. Now, this is my mother sitting at the piano. She was a wonderful pianist. She had her own band in the 1920s and she played for silent movies. And this is my dad. So her name was Eulalie Langy. This is my dad in the picture there, Gérard Rachon. He wasn't, well, he whistled, but aside from that, he wasn't very musical. But the whole family was musical. I look at this picture and I think my sister Suzanne, my brother Jerry, I think they're playing, a comb with wax paper on it. I don't know. I know some of them, we all played the piano and some of them played violin too. And that's me in the playpen. So listening to all this. So there I am. I'm about 11 months old and I think I'm reading the paper upside down, but it looks good anyway. And so this is something I don't read the newspaper in bed anymore, but I'm certainly am fond of words. And my mother is lying in bed next to me, and she is just about ready to deliver her 8th child, which is my youngest sister. Here's another thing. I'm a little bit older. There I am at the piano, and this is something I've done for most of my life. So I just want to pause for a minute and talk about, so I was kind of a hurry up kid, like I skipped grade 2, I started school early, I graduated from high school at 16, got married at 17, had 2 kids by the time I was 20. And then I moved to Toronto and then eventually to Edmonton, where I got a Bachelor of Music in voice and piano. And then I was the logical thing for me to do was to go into theater, musical theater. And let's do that. There we go, next one. And so I played piano bars when I got up in the music department and concerts and some film. And so, but as you can see, I was playing kind of silly roles. So on the left is this, I'm playing some quite sinister woman who's smoking a cigar or something. And on the right, I'm playing, I'm in a play where I'm playing Marlene Dietrich, and I get to say the immortal words, "Why don't we do something mad together? Like make hungry sweating love. Doctor, with your mind and my body, we can rule the world." So, and I did lots of nice concerts and stuff like that. And some concerts with great musicians like Tommy Banks and PJ Perry and other people like that. But the theater was getting to be a bit silly for me. So I ended up going to City Stage in Vancouver and saying, I want to do a play about Edith Piaf. For those younger people who may not know who Edith Piaf is, she was a chanteuse, a very big singer in the 40s, 50s, and she died in the 60s. And I had been visiting, my kids and I went to visit some friends in Northern Quebec. And the mother, Adrienne, after she made this enormous breakfast for the family, because they were dairy farmers, and they would eat like potatoes and eggs and sausages and tarte à sucre and all this kind of stuff, right? And they're all skinny. and because they're working hard. And she would bring out her little Victrola, and she'd play these songs by Edith Piaf, and I went, "Oh, like this." And then on the way home to Edmonton on the train, besides when my son wasn't teaching me how to play chess, which I never did quite get, I read this biography that she gave me, and I said, okay, somebody's got to write a musical about her. So I found a guy, Ray Michael in City Stage, and we did the Piaf show. So I was singing songs like Quand il me prend dans ses bras, il me parle tout bas, je vois la vie en rose. And it was a big hit. It ran for months and months, and then I revised it and did it at the Belfry in Victoria, and a one-woman show in Montreal, and later on at the Grand in London. And but I had a kind of what I loved about doing the Piaf show is I understood what theater was about. Like the Greeks got it right. It was about catharsis. It was about, I would hear people weeping in the audience. It was like, okay, so I don't just can do silly things, but can actually help people to feel something. So, but I had little kids, and it was, tough. So I ended up becoming a writer. So the writing life. So I'm writing musicals and all kinds of things, and plays, and I wrote for this opera theater company in Edmonton called the Opera Theater of Alberta. And I wrote an introduction to opera for them with 4 singers and the Edmonton Symphony Orchestra at the Jubilee Auditorium. Well, that was awesome. And I sent them a title for the show. They really liked the show and said, we don't like the title. And I went, oh, what's wrong? They said, it's too long. I said, okay, fine. So I gave them 25 other titles. I'm a very congenial kind of writer person, and not every word is sacred. So I gave them choice of 25 other titles. You know what they chose? Here's the title they chose. Dr. Euphonious and the dulcet tones present. You can tune a piano, but you can't tune a fish. An opera for big and small fry. Now, that's the longest title I've ever created, but anyway. So I guess it wasn't, the first one was too long. It just wasn't very good. So The Song Spinner was a feature-length movie for Showtime in the US. Patti LuPone, John Neville, Brent Carver. I mean, it was an awesome show. And it was nominated for 3 Emmy Awards, including my Emmy nomination for Best Writing. And I won a Table Ace Award for Best Writing. So that was pretty heavy stuff. And of course, I immediately got writer's block after that one. How do you top that? And we filmed it the exteriors in Nova Scotia there in Fort Louisbourg, which was just an awesome place. We had awesome weather, slippery, icy, awesome weather in February, but it was wonderful. And so then all of a sudden I become a writer in residence, and I go visit elementary and junior high students and give writing classes. And so one of my students, and sometimes they would draw pictures of the different people in the Song Spinner. The Song Spinner was about was a fantasy about a mythical land where they don't allow people to make music or noise of any kind. And this young girl, Aurora, she hears music in her head, and she has to challenge Captain Nizzle of the Noise Police and bring music back to the land. So this little girl in the class, she did a nice portrait of me. Don't you think that's very, very like me? Mm-hmm. And so then I wrote The Song Spinner, the novel based on my screenplay. And I love reading that book. I go in the schools and read that to kids. And then what was so wonderful about The Song Spinner is that CBC in Vancouver commissioned me to write a radio drama based on The Song Spinner. And they were recording it in Vancouver. So I'm leaving Edmonton in November to go for the story meeting and arrive in Vancouver in November, and everything's green. And in Edmonton, if you've been there in November, you know it's either everything's brown or white. So I said, wow, this is so beautiful. And then I played one of the characters in the movie, or in the radio drama. This is Xantalea, the mysterious old gypsy woman who refused to stop singing and returns to the land of Pindrop to teach Aurora the truth about music. So I go back for the recording in December, and it's still green here. So I said, okay, so when does winter start? And Kathleen Flaherty, the producer, said, this is winter. So that was it. Sold my house. My kids were grown up by then. Sold my house and came to Bowen. And for 4 months, every morning I would wake up and say thank you to CBC for getting me here. So this is what I see outside my front window these days, sleeping on the mountain. And, I arrived here in 1999. Just felt completely in love with Bowen. It felt like my spiritual home, felt like I really was supposed to be here. Fell in love with the forest and the mountains. I bought a kayak as soon as I got off the ferry. I don't have a car, but I had a kayak. And I was just so in love with this place. And so a week after I moved here, all these songs just started coming to me. And I'd written songs before, but these were songs about my mother who died many years before, songs about what it would be like to be an older woman. I was in my 50s, and I didn't particularly like the idea of, this culture view of old women. So I just thought, okay, I'm going to, so all these songs came to me. And I was looking for a guitar player because I had a really nice duo in Edmonton with a classical guitarist. And there wasn't Turn Shoot hadn't arrived here yet. It was just a bit early before all those great guitar players came. So my friend Samantha said, well, what about a cello player? I said, oh, okay. So I phoned up Corbin Keep and I said, I've got all these songs coming to me. He says, I'll be right over. And so he comes right over. And 9 months later, we do this CD together, Dancing with the Crone. And I love working with Corbin. He's so funny. And he's such a great cello player and just all around musician. And what I learned from him, see, I had been doing theater and, acting and all that kind of stuff, but in a box, like not connected to where I was. And I go do the show in another place and do the show in another place. This was like I got from Corbin, like, well, he was so grounded in the community. And I got to start to explore this. So how to be an artist as part of the community. And so one of the first things I did was, I don't even remember what date this was, but remember when Cape Roger Curtis went up for sale? Well, I had lived at the end of White Sails, and I was down to Cape Roger Curtis every day with my tape recorder so I could record my songs, with my writing pad, with my lunch, my thermos, so I could just work on there. And so I wanted to protect it. And so I gathered all these great musicians to come, and we did it on the summer solstice up on the hill at Sundog Farm. And I thought I didn't expect we would raise $16 million, which was the price, but we did raise $4,000, and we raised some awareness about whatever. So it makes people sad. I don't even know if I should talk about that. So, okay. So then comes next is artists in the community. So I'm talking to people, and I'm learning the history and going, wow, this is fascinating here. Has anybody ever written a musical about the island? And they say, no. I said, well, it's about time, don't you think? So spend a lot of time at the museum, and Corbin gets on board for this. And I give him all these songs, and he makes charts for the musicians. And we put it on 2005 and 2006. And I thought, well, it's not enough for enough for people to just know my version of the story of Bowen Island, Nexwlélexwm. And so we did a whole festival. So this is the play itself. And you might remember Sarah Baker used to be the gallery executive director of the gallery. That's me as Reva the mysterious trickster. There is Milton. He was wonderful in the show. And Calder Stewart is still performing. There's Morgan. your daughter. And she was great in it. It was really fun to work with all of them. And then this is after the performance. Now, part of my research for the musical was to interview. So that's Jean Jameson, and so the Collins sisters, Jean and Margaret and Marion, who I'm sad to say are no longer with us. But I sat in their kitchen. They told me stories about what it was like to be the daughters of settlers here. I interviewed other settlers' kids too, and got some ideas for the musical, which was really fun. And so then, celebrate the island. So a lot of the work I do is about celebrating things, because I think it's a kind of an antidote to the kind of moaning and whining that goes on in the world, right? So you just want to celebrate. And part of me doing this was like, I'd only been here a few years, and people are saying they just moved from West Van. Excuse me if I'm insulting anybody. They just moved from West Van and say, well, it's lovely here, but we need a swimming pool. We don't need a swimming pool. Like, we got to appreciate what we have here. So there we had this wild salmon barbecue, which lovely people did. We have the old timers telling stories. The Little Red Church, they got dressed up in period costumes and sang old time hymns. And Mauricio did a hike so the rocks could tell their stories. Sue Ellen did a hike so the plants could tell their stories. And there's the dear darling Ross Carter, who I couldn't have done it without. He miss him terribly. He taught me how to chair a meeting, how to set up a budget, because I'm an artist. Like, I'm not a bureaucrat. I don't do that kind of thing. So he said, you're gonna have to learn all this. So I did. And it was a steep learning curve, and I'm really happy I did it. And things came up, like people would say, oh, this is not gonna happen. People aren't ready for this, or whatever. Or, well, you really can't do the musical outdoors. It's got to be, because the weather, it's got to be inside. And I said, no, it's got to be outdoors. I don't want lighting. I don't want microphones. Natural. And then I was getting a lot of flack from people. And so a friend sent me this beautiful little cartoon, and I wish I could find it because I would have put it on here. But it's these 3 little plump women dancing around. And underneath it says, people who say it cannot be done should not interrupt those who are doing it. And that really inspired me to just carry on. So, so many people came on board. It was really fun. And then the second year, so I tried to get the Squamish Nation to come in 2005. And I sent emails and letters and didn't hear back, and I got busy. So it was like, okay, so 2006 comes along, they have to come. The festival is called Voices in the Sound, and it's their voices that were first heard in the sound. So anyway, I managed to, I asked Paul to drive me to the band office, and walked in kind of nervous and whatever, but this is what happened. So the Squamish Seagoing Canoe family came, and they did some dancing, as well as William Nahaney and his dancers. And it was just a wonderful, that was the highlight for me, was the Squamish Nation coming. And I developed some friendships with them. And yeah, so then, what's this one? Oh yeah, so this is William Nahaney from the Squamish Nation, and he teaches us the clan dances. And this is the Raven dance. And I just love seeing Corporal Dan Guilfoyle in the Raven dances. You got your flapping your wings and stuff like that. And see, because I know, like, if you're going to invite Indigenous elders and people like that, you're supposed to have dignitaries welcoming them. And I'm no dignitary, right? So I phoned up Bob Turner. He said, oh, I'm so sorry, I won't be here. I'm working up north. And so I phoned up their RCMP, and he said, sure, I'll come. Do you want me to wear my red serge? Sure. So then he shows up, and I say, oh, Dan, I'm so glad you're here, because I've never done anything like this before. He said, me neither. Anyway, we got through it just fine. And we just had a really, really wonderful time. And so then it was like, okay, I'm having so much fun singing, and I'm going to get other people to sing. So I started having vocal gyms, vocal play shops. And Robert was actually part of one of my vocal gyms. And he thinks he can't be a singer, but he is a singer because anybody with that beautiful speaking voice can sing, trust me. And so then I got in a place of not really sure what to do next. And I had this dream that I was in a big white temple, and there was this master Ganesh, and he was all like some guru kind of guy. And I'm not really a guru seeker, but everybody was asking his advice on things. And so I woke up the next morning, and his name was Master Ganesh. And I said to Paul, what's this Ganesh stuff? All I could think of was Baba Ganoush. It's a eggplant dish, really tasty. And he said, no, I think it's some kind of Hindu god or something. So my friend who was born in India, she said, oh, that's Ganesh, the elephant god. Oh, why would I dream about that? So I started looking it up on the internet. And so this Ganesh, the elephant god, he's like a head of an elephant and body of a person. And he's got small eyes like me. He's got big ears. He's got small eyes because he looks inside. He's got big ears like me because he listens. And he only has one tusk because he removed it to write the sacred text of his people. I thought, whoa, for an elephant to lose their tusk, like, wow, that's really something. So I thought, well, what would be worthwhile for me? What would be worthwhile doing, losing a tusk, And I was going through a kind of despondent time as more and more evidence was coming around about how we have done terrible things to the planet. And so I decided, okay, I'll write a book about it so we can have reconciliation with Mother Earth. And so I gave workshops on it. And it was writing this book meant a lot to me. And so then all the time I'm making CDs for tenderness, joy, and laughter. So, and Corbin Keith was on a lot of these CDs, including Deep Fun, which is my funny songs and slightly educational songs. And so then Mary Beth Dean was the editor of The Undercurrent. And she said, I really like your writing. I'd like you to write a column for The Undercurrent. I'm like, oh, okay. I'd like to do a column on nature because I just finished becoming intimate with her. She said, no. I want you to write a column on community. Okay. As long as community includes the natural community, the forest, the sea, the whole thing. She said, okay. So I did that for almost a year and a half, and I loved doing it. It was just really, really wonderful. I got to interview so many people on Bowen, got to know Bowen people better. And then all this stuff was happening at Wood Fiber LNG. And I started writing about house sound and the transformation of house sound, which had been pretty well dead because of all the industrial activity going on in the sound. And so I wrote a column about house sound, and then another one, I don't know, maybe 4. And Mary Beth says, well, and so how many columns are you going to write about house sound? I said, well, I could write about this the rest of my life. It's where I live and it's beautiful. And I love writing about where I live. And she said, write a book. So I took her advice, and that's what I did. So Veil in the Door was a really emotional experience for me because, well, everybody knows because you had Adam Taylor visiting you, right? So these are the glass sponge reefs, and they're remarkable. So Whale in the Door, that came out about 4 or 5 years ago with Caitlin Press, and I interviewed over 50 people, scientists and citizen scientists, and and people who love this place. Well, I guess what so excites me about Bowen Island and this whole area is how many people that live here love it. They love it so much, and they want to take photos of it and send them to the Undercurrent. And Bob Turner wants to make videos of it and put it on YouTube. And all these people, they love it so much. So I interviewed a lot of Squamish Nation people for Whale in the Door, because how could I write about house sound, Akatsim, and not write about Squamish Nation, because this is their territory, right? And so as well as reading that, as well as reading that, okay, I know what I want to do. I'm going to just pause this for a moment because I want to read you one short piece from Whale in the Door, and it's called An Invitation from a Caxton House Sound. So as I'm writing the book, and more things are revealed to me. So I showed you Sleeping Woman Mountain, which is what I see from my living room, right? But as I'm working on this book, the neighbor down below takes some trees down, and all of a sudden I see Chichioy Alcuapan. Chichioy, which is, you know, people have recently started calling it the lions. It's not, it's Chichioy, the sisters, right? So I felt like I was being spoken to, and because she's looking right at me, right? So I got this sense of being, you know, of being spoken to by house sound. So this is written from the point of view of a Caxton House Sound. Welcome, all you who long to explore, to be reconnected to the wild. I welcome you into my home. Pull on your gumboots, your hiking boots. Go barefoot if you dare, and paddle my waters, wander my rocky paths, climb my precipitous peaks. You won't need Wi-Fi here. I offer you a deeper connection. Let the sounds of my wildness guide you, the silver song of Shannon Falls, the primeval cry of the great blue heron, the siren call of the Squamish wind. You may not understand everything you see and hear. That's to be expected. You have to stay in one place long enough before the spirits of a place will speak to you, before you begin to comprehend the dreams of the wild. And so, and as I was working on the book, I also read the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report, all 384 heartbreaking pages, and the Indian Act, which is the most racist piece of legislation on the books, and it is still in existence. And so when you learn something, you can't unlearn it, and you have to share it. So so I started a reconciliation initiative called Knowing Our Place. And I knew I had to do something. I had to do something. We had to start looking at our true history with Indigenous people, because story is everything. We live the culture forms the stories, but the stories shape how we think and how we act. So I was at the lagoon watching the salmon come in, right? And Chris Corrigan's there, and he's a real good friend. And he loved Voices and Sound. His kids were in it too. And I said, Chris, I want to do this reconciliation initiative, but I don't know what to call it. And I don't want to use the word reconciliation because it's going to be co-opted and everything. And he said, Knowing Our Place. Right. Knowing our place. Because of the two meanings, knowing where you live and also knowing your place there as settlers on land that was taken from Indigenous people. So I approached the Bowen Island Arts Council and the Bowen Library, and Tina and Jacqueline are there. And so I said, I got all these ideas. I want to do this. I want to do this, that, and that, and that. And I want to do this reconciliation initiative. And they both looked at each other and said, we are way too busy and we have to do this. And so they just supported me all the way through this. It was just so we did lots of events. We started with the blanket exercise, which is an amazing way for non-Indigenous people to experience what colonization is about. And I want to do it again next year because that was 5 years ago. It's time to do it again. And I started a book club. This was the first one we did, The Truth About Stories, by Tom King, and we did that went on for a couple of years. We had a wonderful turnout, wonderful people showing up, and we're educating ourselves, and just learning the truth about the stories that we've been telling. And So, and then for the first National Indigenous Peoples Day in 2019, we had a whole slew of events. And then we had a little bit of oh yeah, and then finally the sign. Okay, I worked 3 years for this to get the Nexwlélexwm sign. As you come off the ferry, it says Bowen Island welcomes you, and then we wanted the Nexwlélexwm sign on top. And so Coral Louis carved it, and the Squamish Nation elders came. We had a blessing ceremony, and it was during COVID. It was kind of scary, but you know, it just was wonderful. And then Dennis Joseph, this Squamish Nation elder, he just melted everybody's hearts. He said, I see that sign and I feel like I'm home. And he said, we are building a mighty bridge. And he also said something about like, well, now that you're using the ancestral name, our ancestors will pay attention to you, something like that. And I thought, well, that's good. More help we can get, the better. And then we had a bit of a layover from COVID. And then last June, I found this wonderful Allison Burns Chohamia, this wonderful Squamish weaver. And she came, she brought her loom, she started a weaving. Everybody came and wove together at the library annex. And it is now hanging there. Thank you for the beautiful picture, Marisha. And it's hanging there for everybody to see in the library annex. And so, okay, so what's coming up next for me is Way to Go. And again, the library is supporting me on this, and you know, helping with the promotion. Great poster, Marisha, thank you. And it's going to be wonderful. It's time to start talking about the end of life and getting together and making it less fearsome, making it less. It's something like I would say, well, you know, this is something humans do. It's like, it's not like death happens to you. It's something you do. And so we need help in that dying process. And I just read this great book called Death Interrupted. And he said, all the medical technology that we've got right now is making it harder to die. When is your time? Because we keeping people alive. So anyway, I'm looking forward to this. So why poetry and music? Because poetry and music is going to open our hearts, because that's what you need in this kind of conversation. And Chris Corrigan, the master of guiding conversations, is going to be there. So I read a poem, and then he brings up a theme, and he'll ask the conversation, and we'll have a great discussion. And I'm brewing up some hot mulled non-alcoholic wine and serving nice little tasty savory goodies. And so I hope that people will be able to come and enjoy that. So I want to sing you a little song before we finish. Oh my gosh, there's Corbin. When did you come in, my dear? So I'm going to just sing you. Too bad your cello's not on. Okay, this is the last song in the Voice of the Sound Festival. She dreamed of you. She dreamed of me. She dreamed of humpbacks singing in the Salish Sea. She dreamed of heron, ancient cries in the night. She dreamed of mountains welcoming the morning light. She dreamed us all, every voice, every song. And in our hearts, her dream goes on. And now that we're here, what is the island dreaming now? What is the island dreaming now? What is the island dreaming now? So that's kind of what a lead in. Thank you. That's kind of a lead in to where I want to go next, and that is what's next. And so I know you call it a Q&A, but what's next? Oh yeah, what I'm going to be doing next. More Knowing Our Place events. going to the municipality to sign on to UNDRIP. If you don't know what UNDRIP is, we can talk about it in later. Completing my book of poems on the end of life, more revisions on the memoir, and more walks in the forest. And so thank you so much, everybody, for your kind attention. And I want to call this a more than a Q&A. So I welcome your questions if you have a burning question you want to ask me. But I want to talk about what is the island dreaming now? And what is our role as artists and creative people in realizing that dream, and the role of island organizations like the library and the Arts Council that have supported that dream. So I will stop the sharing. And why doesn't everybody just unmute? And let's have a good old gab fest.
Hey, Pauline, can I ask you a question?
Hi, what?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
So I was a bit of a preamble to this question. I was just at a music festival in Cumberland, Vancouver Island, which is like a little mining town. And it was a weekend festival. And there was all these like musical acts stuffed into all kinds of venues, like Masonic Hall, pub, hair salon, record studio. And you could just wander around and go to all the stuff. And there was young people everywhere and people of all ages. And my question to you is, because I've only been full-time on Bowen for 8 years. I've been coming here since I was a kid, but how has like the arts culture on Bowen changed? Has it changed? Do you think it has room for growth? Do you have a vision for like, what would your like ideal art scene look like on Bowen?
Well, I would like to see the arts be more integrated into what's happening. So for example, Bob Turner, when he became the mayor, it wasn't just this bureaucratic speech, and then have a couple of drinks after. We had, and Corbin can speak to this because he was part of that. And we had like events. So several of us sang songs from the musical. And Gene Harry, Squamish Nation elder, was there with this beautiful eagle feather fan, and he blessed Bob Turner, and he gave a little speech like, your mayor is only as strong as your support is of him, right? And I'd had a dream shortly before the inauguration that I was supposed to give stones to the mayor and the councilors. And so I phoned up Bob Turner. I said, I had this weird dream. I'm supposed to give stones to the mayor. He said, what do you think about that? He said, good idea. Nice, flat, round ones. Well, you know, those are pretty hard to find on Bowen because there's a river stones. But anyway, a bunch of people went and we found that, and Gene Harry blessed these stones. And you know, and Corbin, I don't know when you came in, but you know, I talked about when we did that solstice concert to raise awareness and money for buying Kate Roger Curtis. And it was like the arts were, it wasn't just like, oh, you're in a show, you do a show. I mean, which is fine, that's part, but actually part of the community. And so one good example that's happening that happened now is the mural. Okay, the mural that Guy and Sarah and Paula did. It's like, it's in our life. I love walking by that. It's like, I want more of that. I want more of that, that integration of the art into what's happening. So do you have any ideas, Corbin? So good to see you. How you doing?
You're muted, Corbin.
You're muted. Let's hear you. Let's hear you.
There.
I don't know when you came in, but I talked a lot about you.
Oh, I missed all that. That's just as well.
Yeah, I don't want you blushing. So, you know, you're on so Corbin's on Gabriola now, and I miss him terribly because it was just, he had so many great ideas about being in the community. Like when Matt Maxwell had to have that heart transplant. So what does Corbin do? He organizes this festival, this well, not festival, but concert. Everybody shows up. We're all singing to raise money for him. And it's just, yeah. Do you have anything else to add about, I think the art scene has changed. I think it has. And I'd like to see more integration.
Yeah, the big change I've seen, because this island until not that long ago was a lot less expensive island to live on than Bowen. Bowen's like aptly named West Vam of the Moat. And it took a few years for this island to catch up, because this was like the last bastion of cheap real estate, and people could live here really cheap, and there's tons of artists. It's just this place. Well, I lived on Salt Spring for a short while, and it has triple the land size and triple the population of Gabriola, and Gabriola has triple the arts and culture of Salt Spring. It's like crazy, but it's because it was a cheap place to live, and now that's changed. And the artists who are hanging in are old artists like me who can manage. Yeah, well, we could afford to buy a house when a house didn't cost $700,000 for a teardown, right?
Well, I didn't buy a house. I'm renting.
Right.
I could never buy a house. So, but you're right. So that's part of why it's changed. But what about? But there. I think, you see, if the library and the Arts Council and other Bowen institutions and the municipality, if they support, like they supported the mural, right? If they support those kinds of things, then it will happen. And I think that's what needs to change. So I'm just so grateful that the Arts Council was there supporting the voices and the sound, because people, I did all the fundraising, I did all the work, but people would give me money, but it was put in this, it was safe because it was in the Arts Council bank account, and they could give a charitable donation. So that encouraged people to give donations. And so I think the library is kind of in the same boat too. So, if those institutions would just continue to do what they're doing, I think we can find a way to just make the arts more vital here. And I'm not against having a concert. It's great to have a concert. But part of the role of the artist is to bear witness to what is happening, and to reflect what is happening, and offer something more imaginative, offer some other way to see and do things. And I remember, I love this. Gary Snyder he's a poet. He said, the most radical thing you can do is stay home. Like he said, I heard that years ago. He's absolutely right. Stay home and see what's going on and work with it and change it if it needs to be changed, but stay in it. It's like when I read in Whale in the Door with Cutzman saying, you have to spend a lot of time in one place before the spirits begin to speak to you. It's the same thing. You stay in one space, and then it starts to speak to you. So Marisha, do you have any ideas? Because you brought up the question. Do you have an idea about what the library might do? Like, the library's been great for knowing our place and for the way to go thing that we're doing next. And do you have any, because you're a very creative person.
And you're muted.
And I'm muted. There we go. Yeah, no, I just, I love like grassroots expressions of arts in small communities. And I loved seeing your presentation, Pauline, and seeing the cool things that you've brought to Bowen. And I've just kind of been like thinking, like trying to think of what have I seen on Bowen that's more recent, that's similar to that. And there was a cool event, like Chantal, when she was here, she ran the well. She did a really neat Black Lives Matter event on the pier that was like, it was live streamed to Facebook, and it was all kinds of people presenting, and I think there were songs and poetry and speeches, and I'd love to see more of that, where people just have an idea and make it happen, and you are kind of the queen of that. So yeah, even
but we need support. You know, we need
Yeah.
financial support to be doing that. Is kind of what I'm getting at.
yeah, for sure. I mean, this is my night off, so I'm here speaking not as a library staff person, but and of course we enjoy working with you at the library and in partnership and making those great ideas happen. But just as a Bowen Islander, and someone who really enjoys going to others, like small communities, yeah, just seeing lots of like, I enjoy seeing stuff happen that is, representative of the community, by the community. I mean, it's great when we get artists who come in too from off island, and that happens here as well, which is such a treat. But yeah, I think I sometimes lament, like, I guess that it's hard to see the arts be represented too in a variety of like age groups on Bowen. Like the demographics we have here, I think, have changed over time, and I'm one of the few who doesn't have kids that's my age on Bowen, and a lot of people who are younger on Bowen are really busy and just trying to pay their mortgages and support their families and stuff. So yeah, I don't know, it's something I think about, is how can we get more people involved in the arts of a diversity of ages and backgrounds, and yeah, economic backgrounds and things like that.
Well, thanks for that, Marisha. Does anybody else want to chime in on this?
I'm wondering about the education on the island. We have several different schools on the island, and I'm wondering what young people are growing up knowing about the arts nowadays. I do know that before I came to Bowen, in fact, when I first heard about Bowen, it wasn't the real estate that was the issue. In fact, I don't think people talk to me a lot about the natural features of Bowen, which were very attractive to me because of my environmental background. But what I did hear about was the strong arts community, arts and crafts, not just performance arts, of course. And that seemed to be one of the defining features of the culture of Bowen Island. And I think that is not as prominent when people think about Bowen Island now, which is, in my opinion, too bad. So I don't know what young people think of. I am so glad that my daughter spent all those years in Tiernanog instead of taking a couple of decades to forgive Shakespeare for what happened to me when I was in high school. My kids grew up knowing that a play was something to play with. It was something to have fun with. It was something to explore. And those questions that were asked in literature class when I went to school weren't what they experienced. A play was something you got your teeth into and began to understand what the characters were all about and what was going on in the scene. And the theater was about making magic. And so I'm so grateful to Tiernanog for presenting that to them that way.
Yeah, well, it's just like a lot of people, a lot of kids in school got turned off poetry because of how it was done. And so a lot of times it's like with my book, Becoming Intimate with the Earth, and it was published by a Collins Foundation Press in California. And so she said, oh, so she came to Bowen for about almost a week, and we were working on the editing and stuff. And she said, "Oh, I like your chapter on air. It's so poetic." And I went, "Oh," I said, "Well, actually, I've written a couple of poems about air." She said, "Oh, really? You'll let me read them?" So I give her the poems, and this tear comes rolling down her cheek, and she said, "I don't even like poetry." I was like, okay, I must write poems for people who don't like poetry. And I'm okay with that. But it's like, sometimes education can really spoil things for people. But yeah, I'd like to hear from other people. Milton, how you doing? It's so nice to see you.
I had to come and say hello.
Oh, I'm so glad you did, because, and there's Corbin, like 3 of the people from the Voices and the Sound, like awesome, right?
That was a very, very special event. Yes.
Yeah, it was. And so, somebody came up to me a few years ago and said, "You really need to remount that Voices in the Sound." And I said, "Oh," I said, "What's your budget?" And she said, "Oh, well, there's no budget." I said, "Well, it's a heck of a lot of work." I want to pay Corbin. I want to pay Milton. I want to pay these people, right? Anyway, yeah, so don't know. We'll do it. But Corbin, you got to come to Bowen and visit. We miss you.
Been a lot of years since I've been to Bowen. Yeah. It's actually, believe it or not, it's coming up. It's 9 years since I moved off. 9
Oh my
years. Isn't that amazing?
gosh.
Yeah, I lived there over 17. So yeah. I can see you. I just walked across the street and down to the beach. It's about a minute's walk. There's Bowen Island.
It was, so I told him the story about I arrived on Bowen in 1999, and all these songs come pouring out of me, and I'm looking for a guitar player, and Samantha says, "Well, what about a cello player?" "Oh, okay, well, sure, I like cello." And I phoned you up, and you came right over with that cello. What's wrong with that cello? It's all worn out where you whack it and stuff. And oh God, that was just so much fun. It was just a wonderful time. And hello, Sharon Prosky. I see you there. There's another former Bowen Islander who moved to Salt Spring. She is napping or something.
No, I'm not quite napping, Pauline. I just do have a bit of tape over my camera, but it's so lovely to see you. And also Corbin, who used to cut through my yard with his students and try not to slide down the hill on White Sails Drive. Hello, Corbin. But I just wanted to say how delighted I am to have been able to see you on this wonderful presentation, and what fond memories it has brought back for me. One of my favorite experiences on Bowen when I first moved there was in 2001. I think you performed at what is it called?
The Kate's Chapel.
Yes, Kate's Chapel. You were barefoot, and here's and here's this big, beautiful, rich voice, and I was absolutely, well, gobsmacked. It was so delightful. I thought, oh my gosh, this is one of my first experiences of Bowen Island. And I was just blown away at the talent that you have. And then, of course, Voices in the Sound, how wonderful a performance that was outside. And I'm just thinking of how you have blessed everybody and everything on Bowen Island. You have really, really contributed immensely, not just to the arts and music and everything, but just your spiritual connection to the land and the people and the First Nations people and everything. So thank you so much, Pauline. I haven't seen you for a long time. I've been here on Salt Spring for, I guess, 6.5 years, and I do miss Bowen, although I love Salt Spring and I miss a lot of people on Bowen Island. Anyway, thank you, Pauline. I'm so grateful that you're my friend. So
thank you, Sharon. Thank you so much for being here and saying all those lovely things. And I remember that concert. You know why I gave that concert? I get off the ferry and all these people saying, "Oh, you're Pauline Le Bel. Oh, I remember seeing you at City Stage when you're doing the Piaf show." Audrey Gresco was one of those people. And she's, "Pauline, I remember the seat I was sitting in." And I said, "Audrey, you don't get out very much." And so, it was like, she said, "Well, you got to sing those songs again." I said, "No, I don't sing those songs. I sing my own songs now." And so anyway, she insisted, and other people insisted, and that's when came across Michael Krieber, and we did that, and yeah, that was really fun. And the orchard, you guys remember the orchard?
Right.
Elena, that was so great. And so she had a B&B in this beautiful dining room that could seat 30 people. And so she came to me and she said, I got this idea that, because I sing in French and I sing in Spanish, and so she would do a whole night. So with Michael, we did 2 French evenings. She would make the menu all French, like bœuf bourguignon and blah, 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 crème brûlée and all that kind of stuff. And we'd sing all this French stuff. And it's like dinner theater, right? And then my friend Lyle Steele, that I had he was a great guitar player, and he came and we did a Spanish evening, and she made paella and flan, and it was just so much fun. Like, why don't we do that again? Oh, it's kind of a fun way to do it. Anyway, I think we've probably done it, right? Unless somebody else has something else to say.
I was going to add that, Robert's daughter and family were into theater, and Calder and Fraser Elliott and that whole crew. My sons were into the art side of it, doing little sculptures, and Danny art show, that children's art show. They always had exhibits in there. So it's like that whole group is still buddies and friends, and they all go to Turnagaw to watch one of their buddies playing. But my guys really did the hands with not the words, but with the hands, I guess, making things and stuff like that. So they're all coming back to Bowen. They all come over and visit and are glad to be here, and are still close buddies and friends with these kids that have been there from kindergarten. So tight group. I think the one and only shot one son had at poetry was he by accident at Rockridge in his first year there. So grade 8, grade 9, end up in a grade 12 class by accident. He couldn't find the room, and the teacher had handed out a framework of a poem, which he titled his "I Am a Peaceful Warrior," and she had the opening word or two that you had to fill in. He was the first one done, and it just boggled the mind of his teacher. And it's like, I'm a proud mama. It's my fondest memories of him doing this work with words when he was really the artist and jeweler and goldsmith and silversmith and that kind of stuff, following in his dad's footsteps. So it's like, yeah, I've not been on the language side of the arts, and more it was the crafts or the drawing or painting. So
it's all good
for showing us the language side, I guess, of the arts that I'm not as familiar with, because that's not the direction my sons went. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me, Robert. I really enjoyed this, and thanks to everybody who came and listened attentively, and it was fun.
Well, Pauline, for me, and I believe for all of us, spending this time with you this evening has been a real treat. I'm so glad that I've been able to know you for all of these years. And what always impresses me, and what I think that you come to know when you get to know Pauline a little bit, is she always has projects. And they are very meaningful, deep projects. You dig very deeply into the things that you care about. And I think that that has been wonderful for Bowen Island, that you've come to care about Bowen Island and House Sound at Katsum. This has meant a great deal to you, and you've made so many friends and dug so deeply into the culture, and brought a lot of the native culture to the community that is Bowen Island. And I remember a lovely day that Milton and I spent with you when you were looking into this. And one of the things that I'm interested in as a backcountry hiker and skier is we live in North America's most southerly fjord. And a fjord is a glacier deepened riverbed. And so that you would be able to experience the headwaters which is not waters at all. It's the high glaciers up along the Squamish River and the Idaho River. So we went up there to see it and to experience it. It was a lovely day with you.
That was a terrific day. Yeah.
I think you've brought so many wonderful things to Bowen Island, and I hope that the generation that is growing up now on Bowen Island will come to appreciate the nature of the place that we call home. And I think we count on our artists to reflect back to us what this place is all about, and not just the academic aspects of it, but also the emotional ties that we have to the place that we call home. Thank you so much for all you've done for our community and for spending this time with us tonight, Pauline.
My pleasure. Thanks, everybody.
And thank you of reminding us for all the projects that you've done. We've been aware of each as you've done them, but to put it all together as a whole, like, holy Dinah lady, you've been busy. And thank you.
It was tiring putting it all together.
I imagine. Thank you.
If you go to Pauline's page on bowenrotary.com, there is a link to the video of Voices and the Sound, so you can hear those wonderful songs and that marvelous story that Pauline spun for all of us, and which was shown for 2 seasons on this island.
With the help of Corbin Keep, who wrote all the charts for all the musicians, and he was playing cello and sometimes playing it like a guitar and just musical directing the whole thing. And I really appreciated all that.
It was live theater and live music, and out in Crippen Park, it was just an amazing event.
Thanks, everybody. Great to see you, Corbin. Great to see you, Milton. Great to see everybody. Thank you, Marisha. Thank you, Sharon. And new people I know, Stephen and Lynn and Mary, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for coming. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Back to you, Stephen.
Well, I'm just going to adjourn for tonight. I think that was a lovely presentation, and I'm glad that some people could see old faces again.
Thank you all.
All right.
All right.
Ciao.
Good night.
À la prochaine.
Thank you.